Line up. Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
If you want to build a massive chest, you have to stop expressing it right now.
Welcome to Heinz Senior's Coaching App. Get access to the P3AK High Intensity Training ebook and its exclusive video tutorials. Commit with Heinz's coaching right now and be provided with a year of meal plans, training programs, and more. www.p3akday.com. There is no room for the littles.
RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as #AskDave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, be it on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding related, it is all on the table. So now bringing Dave Palumbo. Dave, yesterday, of course, brand new episode of the After Hours podcast. And of course, we had to get the panel's perspective on the slap heard around the world. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. And I thought Valentino had the line of the night. He said, we put on the thumbnail where he was talking about all that internalized tension that he had within him, especially when Jada gave him that look. He went up there on the stage and he wasn't slapping Chris Rock. He was slapping every guy that's banged his wife. Another hilarious episode yesterday of the After Hours podcast.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. You know, we live in such a messed up world. You can't even make, like, comedians can't tell jokes anymore. I mean, everyone takes everything so personally. I really like Will Smith as an actor. I actually, after he won that Academy Award, I went and I watched. I'm still watching actually the King Richard. Played Serena and Venus Williams' father. And I love him. I think he's a great actor. I think he just literally lost his mind. And I think John and Valentino were right. I think that he actually thought it was funny. And then when his wife kind of probably kicked him under the table, he realized he better do something. So it just was inappropriate. You know, people make fun of people all the time. If you ever watch the old Dean Martin celebrity roasts, those guys would torture each other. I mean, the worst possible racist, chauvinistic, horrendous, low blows at each other, and everyone laughed, and they were all drinking wine and alcohol, and they had a great time. Well, I don't know why our terrible is so uptight.
If that was Dave Chappelle hosting, do you think Will Smith would have gone up on stage if it was Chappelle, 6'2", jacked, and knowing that the whole room would have been rioting?
I don't know. That's a good question. I do think that I'm just waiting for Saturday Night Live to do a skit on it, but I don't even. Maybe they won't even touch it. I don't know.
I just thought it was hilarious because obviously you saw the memes where you had Mike Tyson as a 2023 Oscars host. Somebody else put up a meme where it was a split screen where it was The Rock telling that joke, and then you see Will Smith just standing there laughing, whatever at it. But obvious hilarity again taking place. But yeah, no, you're right. I think today's generation doesn't quite understand that the comedy from just 15 to 20 years ago, where there was no filter, where, some of the things that were said then, I mentioned the Chappelle Show because so many from this generation may have watched it in their younger years. That show would not be able to be aired right now. The kind of jokes that they put through on that show, on those sketches, even that would have triggered people now. So, I mean, we're living in a different world. Unfortunately, that's kind of where we are right now. Obviously,
what he said? He didn't say like you look like you're living on the street or anything like that. He said you look like G.I. Jane, which is kind of cool when Demi Moore shaved her head and she did this big role. I mean, it was like he was like saying maybe you're getting ready for a movie role. He didn't really insult her in a sense. I just don't know why they took it so personally. That's all.
Again, within the inner workings or within their inner circle or whatever, maybe they do know that she has alopecia and maybe she's sensitive to that.
She's not on chemotherapy though.
But to the common man, to the common person watching, they have no idea.
No.
Right? Look, Will Smith had his reaction. It may have been an overreaction. He did what he thought he was doing in that moment to defend his wife. You're going to have people that think he was in the wrong. You're going to have people that think he was in the right. At the end of the day, look, it happened. It's a moment. Everybody's having fun with it. And now you look at Chris Rock. He took a slap to the face on international TV, and he was still standing there smiling and making jokes out of it. And he rolled with the punches, literally. So it is what it is. Some people would have gone back at him. Who knows? It could have been anybody else who literally would have chased him down to his scene, would have had a brawl on live TV. Well, in this country, probably cut to commercial, but you get where I'm going. But again, we live, we learn, and we laugh as we go to the questions. The first 2 questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Interesting one here. I don't know if this is something that we've discussed before. We talk about how everything's on the table, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding related, and I guess this will be more self-care related. Your tips on skincare and shaving.
Yeah, I've done videos on this probably a long time ago, but I always had when I was competing, a lot of bad acne issues, not like grotesque acne, but just annoying, overly oily skin. And I used to try to wash my face 6,000 times a day so I wouldn't get as oily. And it made it worse. And I didn't really realize it. And then I went, and a friend of mine, had this, his mother was friends with this skin care specialist. She did facials, and he's like, why don't you just go see her? Which, I was in my 20s, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm like, I don't want to go get a facial, So I went because I was frustrated. And she explained to me that if you overstrip the oils on your face, we're talking about face, and I'm talking about the rest of your body, your face will over secrete more oils. So what I was doing is I was actually making it worse. Yes, I was cleaning as an antiseptic type of issue. And I was even taking alcohol swabs and wiping the areas that had that I would have breakouts on. She's like, you're over drying the skin. So the skin is almost, and your skin is oily to begin with. She said, it's overdoing it. It's going to overproduce more oil now. And then when I realized that, she taught me how to clean my face using a facial cleanser that's maybe not one that wasn't for people with oily, for people with oily skin. You don't want to use one that is, that maybe has oils in it, because that can make it a little worse, but one that was not as harsh. And what I noticed was I only washed my face. She told me, wash your face twice a day with this. That's it. Maybe a third time if you're, you're running around and, doing sports and stuff like that. But, and I did it. And you know what? I noticed that my skin got a lot better. I didn't break out as much. I wasn't getting as oily during the day. And what I did also was I started shaving with the facial cleanser. And you can get any facial cleanser. Just I go on Amazon now and I buy a facial cleanser that just doesn't have any additives in it and stuff like that. Something that's just real basic. It doesn't even have a smell to it. And it's just not as harsh as soap. And that's what you use on your face. And like I said, I'll shave with that too, because it has a lot of lubrication to it. And I found that my skin really, really got better doing that, rather than constantly with the alcohol swabs on the face and trying to clear it up. Now, as far as the body goes, I use Dial soap, which is an antibacterial soap, because I think what happens is when we sweat, especially in the gym or just even during the day, that sweat will start, causing bacterial growth. And then if you have big pores in your body, or you are prone to acne, it's going to make it worse. So if you're taking 2 showers a day in the morning, at night, especially if you break out on your chest and back, use Dial soap. Make sure you get one of those back scrubbers so you can, with a loofah pad, so you can do your back if you don't have someone to do it for you. Also, if you have someone to do it for you, you might want to and you're shaving your body anyway, you might want to shave your back, a couple times a week if you're hairy back there. And so that seemed to work well for me, because the shaving is an exfoliator. I shave my face every day. Also, that exfoliates that skin and keeps those pores from getting clogged with old dead skin cells. And use the facial cleanser twice a day, in the morning and at night. And if you want to use it to shave as well, that's what I do. So hopefully that helps.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. This question about cardio. Generally, we talk about cardio as a function, for off season, leading into a show prep. This is more so for just overall health. I mean, he's asking about following a healthy diet, obviously weight training. Is that enough for overall health, or do you still suggest some steady level of cardio?
I don't do any cardio. Okay. I was doing cardio for a while because I thought I needed to do that to be healthier. And I realized that it really wasn't, because the cardio that I was doing was like lower intensity. Now I was cycling outside for a while and I felt pretty good, but that's when I had like a weird arrhythmia when I would cycle at a very high level. And then I had my kids. And as you know, so once you have your kids, your time becomes very, very, starts caving in. There's not a lot of free time. So I stopped cycling and I just was really just wanted to work out, really is all I wanted to do. And you know what? All my blood work, all my, cardiac function tests are all really good. I think that the key is keeping your body fat low, exercising in some capacity. And I do believe that weight training is better than cardio in the sense that I think you get better insulin sensitivity from weight training. I know if I do a workout, if I'm working out 5-6 days a week, usually it's about 5 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week I work out. My blood sugars are really, really much better. When I had my shoulder replacements done and I couldn't train, and they didn't want me to train for 3 months, my blood sugars were not quite as good. And that's because we know exercise increases insulin sensitivity and increases insulin receptor density. And the active insulin of working out actually allows your body to absorb glucose without even the need for insulin receptors to a certain degree, in a certain window right after you actually train. So do you need to do cardio? Probably not, but if you like cardio, there's nothing wrong with it. The key is not overeating, keeping your body fat levels low. And I don't, like I said, and exercising. I don't think you have to do one or the other or both. You need to do something is what I'm saying. If you don't like lifting weights, then do cardio. I don't care. I think that weight training is the best thing if you're going to pick one of them, because we know that, if you increase muscle mass, the muscle contracts against the bone and the bone density increases. So as we get older, a lot of times, especially women, they lose bone density. And that's because they're not doing resistance training and they're not stimulating the muscles that are stimulating the bone. So cardio doesn't really increase bone density. Matter of fact, there's a lot of runners, especially as they get older, women, that they actually get osteoporosis because they're not really doing anything to really, strengthen the bone structure in their body, and they start losing calcium. So once again, I think weight training is number one. If you want to add cardio because you tend to be a fatty and you get fat real easily, you can do some low intensity cardio just to keep your fat levels down. But I don't necessarily think that you need to do more high intensity cardio if you are weightlifting.
Let's go to our Instagram question. Again, if you're not already following us, our handle is official_RXMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. Hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. Of course, we have live episodes now of the Heavy Muscle Radio Show on Sunday nights, generally speaking, with Dave, Chris Cito, and then a revolving, cast of Lee Priest, John Romano, and then generally throwing in a special guest. And then, of course, yesterday, Tuesday, we have After Hours, which, of course, has gone to all sorts of heights of hilarity lately. And then, of course, this show, Iron Rage with Lee Priest later on in the week. And of course, our ongoing interviews with some of the top pros, top up-and-coming bodybuilders in and around the bodybuilding world.
Did you mention our new show, Sid?
Yeah, good call. Wow. So we have a brand new show. Now, this is a very important one. It's called Iron Therapy. So again, mental health, mental wellness is something that obviously really throughout the course of the world, throughout all forms of society right now, throughout all, different types of, everything, culture, industry, what have you, it's been tested. And for obvious reasons, everything that the world has gone through over the course of the last 2-3 years, in addition to everything else that it is that you go through during the course of the year. But then when you look at a sport like bodybuilding, and of course, Dave, I want to go to you next so you could speak a little bit more to this from the perspective of a bodybuilder. There are the mental challenges. There are the mental hurdles. There are the mental stresses. Well, we were lucky enough to partner up with Leslie Timball. She's a licensed psychotherapist. She's a sports therapist, and she herself is a bodybuilder. And, I met her at the Olympia. We kind of had a brief conversation about maybe coming on and doing a couple of segments talking about mental health, specifically in bodybuilding. But then I know her and Dave had a more, thorough conversation, and they both came to the conclusion that this would be a great idea, but a great service to the bodybuilding community. This kind of a show addressing mental health in bodybuilding. Dave, you just did the first episode. It was highlighting Colin Von Moger and his recent struggles, and with Leslie really sort of doing a deep dive as far as what he's going through and perhaps little actionable items that could potentially help them as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a good show. I enjoyed it, and like I told her, we would try it out, and I thought it went pretty well. And so I'm looking forward to doing it on a regular basis with her. People have ideas for topics, they can feel free to submit them to us.
So again, check that out. Iron Therapy. That is our new show right now on the RX Muscle YouTube channel. Let's go to Akshay Pandey. David, some episodes of this show, you talk about anavar being a complete waste of money and a weak drug to avoid it. But other episodes and other segments, you talked about usage of anavar. Can you clarify whether one should use it? And I guess I'll add to that in what circumstances and to what amounts, to what extent somebody should be or not be using anavar.
Yeah, I think for women, it's great. It's a great drug because it really doesn't have any side effects, especially if you're using real anavar. For men, it's a waste if you're using testosterone and other strong, anabolics. If you're like more of a beginner person that's never done a cycle and you want to do a cycle of anavar and Winstrol or something like that, I think it's great because it has virtually no side effects. You will get some benefits out of it because you've never used anything and your receptors are really fresh. You're not going to put on massive amounts of muscle with it, but you're going to get harder. You'll put a few pounds on. But if you're doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 milligrams of testosterone a week already, and you're doing 2, 3, 4, 500 milligrams of DECA or equipoise a week with it, adding 30, 40 milligrams of anavar a day is not going to do anything. You're not going to notice a difference, really. You might get a little stronger. I don't know. But it's a very expensive drug. So, and it's worth it if you get real anavar in terms of if I'm going to give it to a woman, it's worth the money because first of all, they don't have to take a lot of it. And secondly, they don't have to worry about side effects from it. So, or at least as long as they keep the dosages, respectable. As far as for a man goes, I mean, a lot of guys would rather spend the money on getting more nutritional supplements or taking maybe growth hormone or something like that. Anavar is it's like I said, if it's real, it's probably going to cost you a lot of money. And it's just, you don't get the bang for your buck, so to speak. So that's why I discourage people from using it. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just not that strong. And for the money, you're not getting a lot for it. I would rather use Masteron or Trenbolone or something like that. And you're going to spend a lot less money doing those drugs. So I don't know why people would want to use it necessarily, other than the fact that it's like Primobolan. There's no Primobolan around that's real anymore. So people think, oh, I got to have Primobolan because, because they just want it because they can't get it, that kind of thing. There's I breed snakes. Everyone knows that. There's certain snakes that are just, people stop breeding them because they're just not cool snakes. And then all of a sudden there's none of them around. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, whatever happened to that Dunn's python? Well, no one was breeding them because they really are not that cool. And then all of a sudden everyone wants it. And the Dunn's python's prices go through the roof because it's not around anymore. It's not that it was a great snake. It's just that no one's got it anymore. So I think a lot of it is supply and demand. Creatine, if you've noticed, the prices have gone through the roof. It's 10 times, 10 times the cost now if I have to make the stuff. So we haven't even made Crealize. We stopped. I'm going to wait till the prices go down. But, everyone wants to use it now because it's not available and people are going crazy and it costs a fortune and people are spending the money. Meanwhile, when it was pennies, to buy the stuff, no one even wanted to be bothered with it. So it's the old, I don't know if you guys took economics in school. It's supply and demand. When the supply goes down, the price goes up and the desirability goes up. And that's just how it works.
Let's go to Harley Ryder. How do I get a cardiac CT scan if my doctor won't order one without cardiac symptoms and the place that it does the scan won't do one without a doctor's orders? Yeah.
The cardiac CT calcium score, which is a lesser version of that test because they don't inject any contrast into you. You don't need a prescription for that. You could actually call any radiology place near your house and say, I want to schedule one of those. You pay cash. It's $59 or something like that, I think, usually. And they'll do that. Now, if that comes back with a high calcium score or anything more than a 0, a lot of times then you could take that test to a cardiologist and they'll prescribe you the cardiac CT scan with contrast because now there's a reason to prescribe it. You know what I mean? So I would take it upon myself, get the cardiac CT calcium score because that's easy. It takes 5 minutes. You just go in there, you sit in the machine for 5 minutes and they take a picture and you're done. And it's really cheap. And then if that comes back perfect and your calcium score is 0, then you probably don't really need to worry about it. unless you're running unless your LDL cholesterol is super high or you have a family predisposition. But if you don't, then you're good. If it comes back, with a higher number than is desirable, then I would then go take that to the cardiologist, and then you can follow up with that. And then there shouldn't be any issue with him prescribing it to you.
Let's go to Todd Payette. Do you remember the bodybuilder Phil Hill? I thought he had a great physique, fantastic poser as well. Any idea why he disappeared from competing? And have you ever tried to get him on as a guest?
John Hansen and I talked about him. I don't know, it was probably about 6 months ago. He was a good bodybuilder, and he competed a little bit, but I guess it just wasn't for him. I don't really know the reason he stopped. I mean, but there could be innumerable reasons. I don't know. He could have gotten in trouble. He could have, injured himself. The problem with bodybuilding, especially back then, was there was no money in it really. So, a lot of these guys had to work real jobs. And so at some point, the smart ones said to themselves, you know what, it's just not worth me spending all this money, putting my health in jeopardy, and I'm not even making any cash from it. So I don't know if that was the case with him, and we can try to get him on the show for sure. I think it would be a good interview. He was like a Kai Green back then, that he had that kind of crazy mass looking physique, and he was really good. I don't know if I think he got into a fight with Mike Quinn at a show backstage once, but I'm not really sure. But that's a good idea. We'll look him up. We'll see if we can get him on.
So before I go to the next question, our question list right now seems to be like a mishmash of questions about Big Rob, which has become a weekly staple. And Ramon Quiroz, or the classic physique star out of Brazil.
Ramon Dino,
yeah, Dino. God, like about 17 questions about him, about whether he's a second or third best classic physique. We'll get to his question in just a bit, but let's go to Mick Markle. Starting out on TRT or low range use of say 250 mg a week of testosterone, if you're holding body fat percentage that's not ideal or slightly overweight, what should we do in this case so we don't cause any problems? I'm
not sure what the question is. What was the...
So, I mean, I guess from his standpoint, he's starting out low range, 250 mg a week.
Yeah.
So if you're holding any body fat percentage, yeah. So I guess...
I guess he wants to know what the best way to go about it from a health perspective is.
Yeah.
Steroids don't burn fat, okay? They build muscle, and they don't make you fatter either. Sometimes I hear people telling me that. Maybe I should get lean before I start my steroid cycle. Steroids don't make you get fat. If anything, they increase your metabolism a little bit, so they might actually help you lean out, assuming you're eating a good diet. So you want to go on HRT, go on. It shouldn't matter what you look like. Now, if you're fat or you're out of shape, go on a diet while you're doing it. Steroids make things work better. So if you're dieting on testosterone real hard, you're going to retain more muscle mass, and you're going to look better. If you're eating a lot of food on testosterone, you might bloat a little more, but you're going to build muscle at an accelerated rate. So I always have people asking me, I'm a natural guy. What kind of a diet should I follow? I'm a guy on steroids. What should I follow? It's the same diet and supplements are all the same. Steroids just make things work better, just like HRT just makes things work better. So there's no, I have to do this or I have to do that while I'm on. You have to eat right is what you have to do according to what you're trying to achieve, whether you're trying to gain weight or try to lose body fat. And you want to take all your nutritional supplements to support whatever your goals are, obviously.
Let's go to Get Strong and Big. Should you take HGH out 2 weeks out from show date to not hold water? Just watched a Brett Wilkins YouTube video, and he was discussing that he does just that.
Some guys get very bloated in the abdomen from GH. And I'm not talking about fluid retention, because fluid retention is bullshit, because you can get rid of that with a diuretic, and that's water restriction. That's not an issue, okay? The issue is, is it making your physique look worse or better? In some cases, it will make guys' bellies look bigger, okay? And it causes fluid retention there, not under the skin, but in the muscle itself. And so it just doesn't look as aesthetic. So some guys look better when they take the GH out. I used to stop it 2 weeks out, and then 2 days before I'd put it back in, because it does make the muscles fill out, and it takes a lot longer than 2 days before you start getting the abdominal distension issue. So that worked for me. So what I do is I keep it in with all my guys. I might lower it a little bit, but I keep it in if they look good on it, because I don't like to change things the last week or two, because that's when things go wrong. All of a sudden you go flat. You're like, what the hell happened? Well, I was on the GH. I looked great. And then I took the GH out and went flat. So don't just knee-jerk take it out because that's what some people do. Judge yourself by how you look on it. If you look really good on it, then leave it in. You might want to just, if it's making you a little bloated, you might want to cut back the dosage a little bit. If you have an abdominal issue where you do tend to get, that belly sticking out, then I would probably remove it and maybe just put it back the day or two before. Try that. So for each person, it's going to be different. And it really just depends on how you look while you take GH.
So let's address the Ramon Dino question, because we're getting so many questions about Ramon Dino. Does he have the best arms in the IFBB? Is he this? Is he the second or third best? So let's answer a very specific one here. It's from Amanda Maritas. Does Ramon Dino have a quote-unquote golden era physique in your opinion?
I'll tell you why I like Ramon's physique, because he brings ridiculous conditioning. I'm a conditioning guy. He's got the small waist. He's got all the bells and whistles you need. I personally think that once he adds just a little bit more muscle to his body, he's going to be very, very hard to beat. Now, when you compare him to a guy like Chris Bumstead, Chris will only lose when he can no longer do the things he needs to do to be the champion. In other words, if he gets injured, or, we know he's dealing with some health issues, for the last couple of years, he's got that IgA nephropathy. So, I mean, if anything is going to stop Chris Bumstead, it's not going to be another competitor. It's going to be Chris Bumstead's body just not holding up. So I don't think that Ramon is going to beat a Chris Bumstead, but I think that he could be the future after Chris Bumstead. But as far as the other guys go that he's competing against, I think he could challenge a Rough Diesel and possibly take him out, because he's a taller guy. He occupies more space on stage. I just think that Rough Diesel is a little more complete at this point. But I think that Ramon has all the tools to be able to get to that next level. Now, I don't know how much weight he can still gain and still make that weight class, because obviously you can only weigh a certain amount for your height. But assuming he can gain another 5 to 7 pounds of muscle, I think at that point he's very, very dangerous. And he's got, like I said, he's got one of those physiques that you enjoy, just like looking at. It's like it's pleasing. The lines flow well. He's got tremendous conditioning. I've never seen the guy out of shape on stage. Even when he did the Olympia last year, I think he arrived like the day of the show or something like that, and he still looked really good on stage. Imagine if he would have come a couple of days before. So I think that he's got unlimited potential. That's my take on him.
Let's go to Lag No Excuses. The most famous non-bodybuilders that you've coached, I know Triple H is probably the name that comes to most people's minds. Is there anybody else, professional athlete, actor, that you can name, non-bodybuilders that you've coached?
Yeah, I mean, I did, and I'm still every so often will come back to me. Chris Angel, the magician, he's actually, his new theater. He used to do a show at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, and now he's working at the Planet Hollywood Hotel there. They have a theater that they built for him there, and his show. I think he's got the best show in Vegas right now. And he's a really cool guy. And the irony of the whole Chris Angel relationship that I have, and Triple H had put me in touch with him, is that we went to the same high school. He was 1 year older than me, and I've seen him at school. I'm sure he saw me in school, but we weren't friends or anything like that. He had his own little group, and I had my own little group. And like I said, he was a year older than me. But we never knew each other in East Meadow. And we had a lot of mutual friends that were the same. Like I have a lot of guys that I know that lived next door to Chris and stuff like that. And it wasn't until Triple H introduced us, and then when Chris Angel flew me out there to help him with his diet, that we started talking. We knew we knew all the same people, because East Meadow, Long Island is not that big. So, and we were around the same age, so it was really kind of funny. He's a really, really good guy. He actually is. Jake Wood and Dan Solomon and Angelica and Nebbia, they went out there and they met with him. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And he has, one of his children has leukemia. And so he has this, foundation, to raise money for kids with leukemia. And I know that Jake Wood and the Olympia are going to be giving some kind of a donation to that foundation. And so Chris is going to be at the Olympia doing something really cool there. And so I'm glad I was able to help put Dan in touch with him. And it should be a really, really good thing, because it's always great when our industry can give back to someone else and to another industry and help people in need. So, I would say that, he was, one of the more high profile people that I work with. Stone Cold Steve Austin, I worked with him for a diet too. We did a ketogenic diet. He really loved that diet. I worked with him for about 12 to 16 weeks. So I enjoy working with Hollywood people because they're so appreciative about the fact that you can give them the tool set they need to be able to change how they look, because a lot of them just don't know anything about nutrition or supplementation. And so when you put that kind of information into their hands, it's like, hey, we're so good at what we do, but we know nothing about this. And they're very appreciative. And so I enjoy doing that. I would actually like to work with more, obviously some stars are a little higher end, and they require more, I guess you could say, attention. I had a massage therapist friend of mine, and she used to go on tour with Mariah Carey, and Mariah Carey required her to like lay in the bed with her and massage her until she fell asleep every night. Now, she paid her a lot of money. She made a lot of money, but she was always on the road with her, hotel after hotel. And I mean, she was basically at her beck and call, but she did it when she was younger. She made a lot of money, and she made a lot of contacts. She made a lot of rock singers. She was working with their bands, and she'd massage them in between. So, celebrities are good. It just depends on how much time you have to devote to them. A lot of these celebrities need you all the time there. And so if you have a family or you have other commitments, sometimes it's hard to do that.
Take a couple more questions. Let's go to Swift 1982. At what point do longer esters start to downregulate and more frequent shots are needed?
Long-acting esters last a long time, but people think, okay, I take testosterone and I'm going to get my levels up to here, and they're going to just stay there, until the next shot. That doesn't happen. Remember, you're still going to have this kind of an effect happening, even though they're in your system a long time. They're not going to be at peak levels all that time. So that's why, even though you think you wouldn't need to take a shot very often, very frequently, I still, if I'm on a cycle and I'm doing 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week, rather than take the testosterone all in one shot or two shots, I like to do it every other day so that you kind of keep your levels steady. So when one shot is peaking, the other one's coming down, they kind of even each other out a little bit. As far as HRT, a lot of people say, well, what do you think about like microdosing it every day or taking it every other day or 3 times a week? When you're talking about HRT, I never noticed, and I took it for 10 years. I never really noticed ups and downs in it. So if I took testosterone and I took a shot once a week, I felt fine. Very rarely did I ever feel low or high on it. That doesn't mean you can't take it twice a week or 3 times a week if you want to. It's just, I think it's unnecessary. But if you're doing a cycle where you're taking high amounts, pharmacological amounts versus the physiological amounts you would take for an HRT, I think it's better to take it like on an every other day basis.
Let's go to black belt bodybuilding. The most a person should inject in one spot: 1.5 cc, 2 cc.
The old Bill Phillips, when he wrote the anabolic reference guide, conventional wisdom was no more than 3 mLs or 3 cc's into one injection site at a time. And I would tend to go along with that. I think that's, maybe once or twice in my entire life, I tried to do like a 5 cc shot. I don't know, maybe I was going on vacation or something like that, and I was too lazy to load it into 2 syringes. Doesn't work out well. It's a lot of fluid in one spot. 3 cc's is the most that I would do. And I did it often, because what I would do is when I was doing shows, a lot of times I would take 1 cc of testosterone, 1 cc of trenbolone, 1 cc of Winstrol, and I was doing that every other day the last, 4 to 6 weeks before a show. So I didn't want to have to take 2 different shots. I would just load up the 3 cc's in there, shake it up, because I had the Winstrol in there. Obviously, I wanted to mix it all, and I would take the shot, and that seemed to be absorbed fine. It's when you go over the 3 cc's that I think you have a problem.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you're watching us for the first time, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. All new episodes of Heavy Muscle Radio, and then, of course, last night's episode of After Hours. And, of course, our brand new show, Iron Therapy, all available right now on the YouTube channel. And, of course, later on in the week, we have Lee Priest and Dave Pulcinella, all new episode of Iron Rage. I'm still waiting on word from Urs Kalasinski, Classic Physique, Rising Star. So if we get confirmation, then we will certainly have him on the channel as well. Thank you for watching. See you next week.